Damien Echols spent 18 years on death row for a crime he didn't commit. He's one of the West Memphis Three. Three teenage boys convicted of murdering 3 children without any physical evidence tying them to the crime. Just last year, thanks in large part to several documentaries, celebrity support, and new DNA tests, the men gained their freedom, but only at the price of accepting a controversial guilty plea. Joining me on set, the author of the great new book, Life After Death, Damien Echols, as well as the filmmaker, the director of a fantastic new documentary on the story, Amy Berg. Damien, you got out August 2011. How's your year been?
To say it's overwhelming doesn't even come close to articulating it. You know, everybody thinks you're just going to be happy and jubilant that you're out of prison, and you are. But at the same time, there's a tremendous and crushing amount of anxiety and stress that comes along with trying to get acclimated to the world again, too. By the time we got out, the day we walked out of prison, I hadn't slept or eaten in a week just because I was so terrified that the deal was going to fall through at any second and I was going to die in that prison cell. My very first execution date was May 5th of 1994. And I got even closer than that than I should have because the attorneys I had at the time were so incompetent they didn't realize they had to file an appeal on my behalf. They sort of thought it was going to happen automatically. So we got right up to the execution date.
Who figured out that they had to file the appeal?
Somebody must have told them.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
And were those state appointed?
They were. They were the same guys that as soon as the trial was over, they immediately went for a vacation at the judge's hunting cabin.
How did you get involved with Damien's story?
Well, I got involved a few years after Fran Walsh and Peter Jackson had been investigating the case and spending money doing DNA testing and hiring numerous forensics experts. They thought that they would bring all of this new evidence to the court and actually have a new hearing for the guys. And it was just, the door was slammed in their face before anyone even listened to what they had. And I mean, the evidence was overwhelming. And so with all of that important information, the only thing that they thought could work was to make a documentary film. So they approached me.
A few months ago, a friend of mine saw you on the street in New York City. She's looking across the street at you, and she thought that you were looking at her, and all she could say was, "Congratulations!" And you apparently went, "Thank you!" You must get that a lot in these days.
You do. It's really odd. It can go from one extreme to the other. You know, sometimes people will walk up to you on the street and just immediately, as soon as they see you, before they start talking, they automatically start crying.
Wow.
I
was hoping that I wouldn't do that when I first saw you. I was like, am I going to give him a hug? Am I going to cry? It's been so long.
Well, like the very first thing that I wanted to do, you know, I used to say, if these people don't kill me whenever I get out of here, this is what I want to do. And the very first thing on the list was go see a Boston Red Sox game.
You're a Red Sox fan?
Yeah, it's not a great thing to admit when you're in New York City.
I'm from Massachusetts, man. I'm a Red Sox fan.
I love the Red Sox.
Yeah,
and
Green Monster.
I got to sit on top of the Green Monster.
No
I
way.
got to sit in the owner's box. I got to sit right behind home plate. I got to meet Theo Epstein, the whole team. My favorite player at the time was Jonathan Papelbon, and I was just going to ask him, you know, would you sign this baseball? He says, well, I've got something even better, and he goes to his locker and gets out a game-worn jersey and signed it and gave it to me. We moved to Salem a couple months ago. I do live in Massachusetts now, and you know, I'd wanted to see that place. And when we saw it, we just absolutely fell in love with it and said, you know, this is where we want to move. This is where we want to live for the rest of our lives. Just because of the history of the place and the persecution and the people that were hung and accused of witchcraft, it's made it sort of like a mecca for anybody who practices any form of alternative spirituality now. So it's like the one place in the world where I'm finally in the majority.
How are the other guys doing?
Jesse's not doing so well. You know, he only had an IQ of like 68 to begin with, and going through all of this screwed him up, you know, just tremendously. From what I've heard, he never even leaves his house anymore. He's become almost agoraphobic. He's terrified they're going to find some way to put him back in prison, so he doesn't have anything to do with anyone, never comes out of his house or goes anywhere. Jason, on the other hand, whenever we first got out, we went to Seattle for a few days and stayed with Eddie Vedder there. And Jason liked it so much that he never left. He decided that's where he wanted to live, and he's currently in school. What he wants to do is get his law degree and be able to help people who are in the same situation that we were. But unless we're exonerated, he can't practice law.
Damien, I just want to give you a hug, man. Thank you so much for coming on. Oh, it's amazing.
Thank you.
You're watching HuffPost Live. I'm Ricky Camilleri.